Welcome to the Tuesday edition of Liberty Lunch Break, the topic du jour from Off the Wire. I am your host, Noella Lynn, aka the Cajun Libertarian, and we have a great show lined up for you. And of course, we have some video. But first, before we get started, please like, share, subscribe. Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Facebook, Twitter, and most importantly, YouTube. I don't know if YouTube is actually most importantly because, excuse me, I get most of my downloads on the podcast version, meaning not the video version. Spotify and Apple Podcasts are just going like crazy. So just do me a favor, leave me a 5-star review on that. And abolish the ATF and help me out on my post-birthday week. Please. I am the big 40. So your likes, shares, and subscribes, and your comments. Please. So what is the topic du jour? Former director of national intelligence admits that Fauci lied about gain-of-function research. And this is by Tyler Durden from Wednesday, April 19th. Obviously, it's not really by Tyler Durden. It's actually zerohedge.com and a very valid source of information. And like I said, of course, we have an amazing video. So let's get started. Only 2 years ago, numerous alternative media sources, including Zero Hedge, were accused of spreading quote-unquote conspiracy theories and false information relating to the origins of the COVID-19 virus. Specifically, anyone who dared to suggest that the level 4 virology lab in Wuhan, China, I had to, got to, and this is a parenthetical here, right across town from COVID Ground Zero, in parentheses, might be the source of the outbreak, faced outright censorship on social media. The question many people should have been asking is why? Why was the censorship so aggressive over clearly reasonable investigations into Wuhan lab operations? Not only that, but why were the denials and spin from officials like Anthony Fauci so swift? Well, we know why. Because they did not want the truth out. That's why they come up with these derogatory terms and then apply them to everyone that has any sort of dissenting opinion according to this. Well, I was going to say, specific to this situation, but it's not anymore. It's not. Everything that is a dissenting opinion of the official narrative is now disinformation, misinformation, or malinformation. And it's absolutely absurd. At this point, if you're being fact-checked by, like on Facebook, because it really doesn't happen, you got community notes on Twitter, which is actually phenomenal, than fact-checking Joe Biden and other people, so that's great. But they're actually accurate fact-checking substance. But basically, when you go on Facebook and they're fact-checking you, you can just chalk that up to just straight-up truth at this point. Obviously be wary. Be cognizant of what you're reading. If it's obviously stupidity, then or obvious stupidity, then whatever. But at this point, we know exactly why they're fact checking. We know exactly why they label everything disinformation or misinformation, and it's because they don't want the truth being put out there, because that hurts their precious literal tyrannical narrative, which is where we're at. Dissenting opinion against the official narrative, against the regime's response position, censored. That's why I'm censored on Facebook right now, right after having all the suspensions lifted, right back to it, completely shadow banned, reach crushed. So, as soon as I started making an impact again, it started reaching like 1 million people again. Yep, crushed my reach. Nope, don't like it. Hate that app. Facebook, and I know because you send me emails. I have 33,000 followers on that app. Every time I start to make an impact, they do this every time. Even when you appeal the censorship, you appeal the violation, and they say, okay, well, Didn't violate. My bad. Still, they shut your reach down. It's amazing. Amazing. Go to Twitter. It's better. Way better. Promise you. All right, let's continue. Why not simply examine the evidence instead of dismissing it out of hand? Because they don't want you to examine the evidence. That is why, 100%. They want the narrative to be the only voice of opinion. And it's not even opinion. Straight up lie. That's what we're dealing with. Excuse me. The real reason for the campaign to silence discussion on the Wuhan lab becomes evident as the connections between Fauci, the NIH, and the lab are revealed. Also, Ecolab, Health Alliance, Moderna, Pfizer, all of the above. All of the above. And plus more. Elements of the U.S. government, including Fauci, were in fact bankrolling gain-of-function research on coronaviruses at Wuhan and shielding it from government oversight. It is undeniable, if one accepts that the most likely source for the COVID pandemic was the Wuhan laboratory, then one must also accept that Fauci and his associates helped to create the pandemic. Associates, not associates. My apologies. Fauci lied about these connections incessantly under oath. Here is Anthony Fauci defending his initial lie to Congress using further lies during questioning by Senator Rand Paul, who has been outstanding against Fauci. By the way, I keep having to, do the thing with my nose because I'm a smoker. I hate it. Can't stand it. But the continuous talking requires, the result of it requires me to do the thing. But all the talking releases the juices in my face. Now, anyway, enough of that. Let's watch this amazing video. If you hadn't seen it before, you are going to 100% freaking love it. If you've already seen it, you're still going to love it because it's always worth revisiting. It's amazing. Let's go.
Dr. Fauci, knowing that it is a crime to lie to Congress, do you wish to retract your statement of May 11th where you claimed that the NIH never funded gain-of-function research in Wuhan?
Senator Paul, I have never lied before the Congress, and I do not retract that statement. This paper that you are referring to was judged by qualified staff up and down the chain as not being gain of function. Let me finish.
You take an animal virus and you increase its transmissibility to humans, right. You're saying that's not gain of function?
Yeah, that is correct. And Senator Paul, you do not know what you are talking about, quite frankly. And I want to say that officially. You do not know what you are talking about. You get
NIH,
one person.
Let's read from the NIH definition of gain of function. This is your definition that you guys wrote. It says that scientific research that increases the transmissibility among animals is gain of function. They took animal viruses that only occur in animals and they increased their transmissibility to humans. How you can say that is not gain of function?
It is not.
It's a dance, and you're dancing around this because you're trying to obscure responsibility for 4 million people dying around the world from a pandemic.
And let's let Dr. Fauci.
I have to, now you're getting into something. If the point that you are making is that the grant that was funded as a sub-award from EcoHealth to Wuhan created SARS-CoV-2, that's where you are getting. Let me finish.
We don't know.
Well,
we don't
wait
know
a minute.
If it did come from the lab, but all the evidence is pointing that it came from the lab, and there will be responsibility for those who funded the lab, including yourself.
I totally
This committee will allow the witness to respond.
I totally resent the lie that you are now propagating, Senator, because if you look at the viruses that were used in the experiments, that were given in the annual reports, that were published in the literature, It is molecularly impossible.
No one's saying those
It
viruses
is-
caused it.
it
No
is
one is alleging that
molecularly-
those viruses caused the pandemic. What we're alleging is that gain-of-function research was going on in that lab, and NIH funded it.
That
You
is
can't
not-
get away from it. It meets your definition, and you are obfuscating the truth.
I'm not.
Glorious, glorious. And let me point this out too, right? For anyone that may or may not understand, because it's always worth evaluating and translating and interpreting. Fauci is scripted. That's why he gets so frustrated, because he has no ability to debate or run off the cuff in real time. Zero. None whatsoever. And he knows he's caught in a lie. So he's frustrated. And that's why he does the accusations of the claim to authority, right? The appeal to authority argument. You have no idea what you're talking about. Forget, Senator. No, you're wrong. You've been caught wrong, and you're way out of your league, Fauci, you genocidal tyrant. And it's obvious. He's scripted. He gets mad because Rand Paul is actually somebody who can be in that setting of a conversational back and forth, an exchange in debate. Fauci is not. Fauci's a lying, genocidal tyrant, so he has to stay scripted. So he gets very frustrated when he's being interrupted and when he's being called out, which is obvious because that is exactly what gain of function research is. Listen, gain of function. You're gaining a better functionality of the virus. So they did the experiments in which they could take a virus and make it more transmissible to humans or other mammals in order to, quote unquote, get some sort of preventative medication for it. That's what that is. Gain of function. They're gaining a higher function in medical experience or via medical experiments. That's what that is. He's lying. He knows he's lying. He's struggling because he doesn't have the cognitive wherewithal to stand on a debate stage. You can have all the degrees that you want, and you can work for the highest levels of the NIH and the NIAID. It doesn't matter. It's all learned, systematic information, which you can't learn, quote unquote. Of course, you can learn to a certain degree, but it takes a level of talent also to be able to sit in that format and call somebody out in that retrospect. And that's what Dr. Rand Paul has done. His dad, Dr. Ron Paul. So when Anthony Fauci says, with all due respect, Senator, you don't know what you're talking about. And I want to say that officially. No, he's wrong. He's been called out. He's a liar and he's a maniac. And he deserves to have life without parole and hard labor until he dies in that cell or chipping ice from the Antarctica. Full stop. Evidence of the research includes documents from the Department of Defense obtained by Project Veritas, which this is, by the way, this is from, I think I already said April 19th, previous Project Veritas, not post James O'Keefe, to my knowledge. All right, which confirmed that EcoHealth Alliance approached DARPA in 2018 about gain-of-function research on bat-borne coronaviruses under a proposal called Project Defuse. DARPA rejected the proposal on the grounds that it did not outline the risks of such experimentation and violated a moratorium on gain-of-function research. EcoHealth then went to Fauci and the NIH for funding, and Fauci was quick to support it using the labs in Wuhan. Now, the most maddening part about all this, I got just a paragraph or two left here. These people will never be held accountable. They won't. We can bask in the glory of Fauci getting absolutely wrecked by Dr. Rand Paul. And we can absolutely celebrate, which is probably how I should have phrased the first one, that the truth is being exposed. And we should. But these people will never be held accountable for the thousands, millions, or hundreds of millions of lives lost due to their absolute, provable negligence in the scientific field, to say it mildly, and not inject any sort of conspiracy theories, just based on the facts, to put it mildly. Complete scientific negligence and arrogance and absolute disdain and disrespect for human life. They're not going to be held accountable. They're not. So, what's the point? The point is that more people wake up that they were lied to by this guy, and that the next scamdemic, pandemic rolls around. You don't trust these people. Don't trust them. They hate your guts. They hate you. Don't trust them. Let's continue. Documents from the NIH itself also show that the group engaged in gain-of-function research at Wuhan focusing on developing coronaviruses that could be transferred from animals to humans. Fauci was aware of this research by at least 2021. This dude's been doing it for decades. But okay. Credit where credit's due. I took the article from Zero Hedge. It's where we're at. So, and they're probably trying to be careful, same way as I am. So, and was likely involved from the very beginning, and yet continued to lie about NIH involvement. Meanwhile, the National Pulse, which has done multiple deep dive investigations on the topic, uncovered in May of 2001 that the WIV scrubbed all mention of its partnership with the NIH from their website. Amazing. Scrutiny over Fauci's disinformation campaign may be too little too late. Yeah, it is. It was always too little too late, because these people are covered up by absolute tyrannical, genocidal maniacs. It was never going to be not covered up. Period. May be too little too late. And we have to wonder if the man will ever face consequences for his actions. Nope. And you're talking to somebody that from the moment, I'm telling you, the second that I watched this bureaucratic 4-foot-tall tyrant step out in front of our TV, I said, he's a lying psychopath. I had no idea who he was. Then I had to go back and research and find out what he did with the AIDS epidemic, which, my gosh, intuition. And I do have an extensive medical background, and I know how coronaviruses work. I knew how respiratory viruses work. Said it repeatedly. Have an extensive medical background within, from the military. But it wouldn't take 10 seconds of Google research. Literally. All right, maybe not literally. Let's say 20 minutes max of Google research, DuckDuckGo research on how coronaviruses and respiratory illnesses operate and what they do to the system and how the system responds to them, especially if they're traumatic. You'd know this was a lie. The whole thing was absolutely hopped up on steroids and fed to you via fear porn. Quote James Madison, 4th president of these United States. Crisis is the rally cry of the tyrant. James Madison. Scrutiny over Fauci's disinformation campaign may be too little too late, and we have to wonder if the man will ever face consequences for his actions. However, the exposure of Fauci and the NIH is so overwhelming that the former director of national intelligence now admits that Fauci misled Congress and the American people. Let's watch it again because it's so satisfying.
Dr. Fauci, knowing that it is a crime to lie to Congress, do you wish to retract your statement of May 11th where you claimed that the NIH never funded gain-of-function research in Wuhan?
Senator Paul, I have never lied before the Congress, and I do not retract that statement. This paper that you are referring to was judged by qualified staff up and down the chain as not being gain of function. Let me finish.
You take an animal virus and you increase its transmissibility to humans,
right.
You're saying that's not gain of function?
Yeah, that is correct. And Senator Paul, you do not know what you are talking about, quite frankly. And I want to say that officially. You do not know what you are talking about. Okay, you get
NIH,
one person.
Let's read from the NIH definition of gain of function. This is your definition that you guys wrote. It says that scientific research that increases the transmissibility among mammals is gain of function. They took animal viruses that only occur in animals and they increased their transmissibility to humans. How you can say that is not gain of function?
It is not.
It's a dance, and you're dancing around this because you're trying to obscure responsibility for 4 million people dying around the world from a pandemic.
And let's let Dr. Fauci.
I have to, well, now you're getting into something. If the point that you are making is that the grant that was funded as a sub-award from EcoHealth to Wuhan created SARS-CoV-2, that's where you are getting. Let me finish.
We don't know.
Well,
we don't
wait
know
a minute.
If it did come from the lab, but all the evidence is pointing that it came from the lab, and there will be responsibility for those who funded the lab, including yourself.
I totally
This committee will allow the witness to respond.
I totally resent the lie that you are now propagating, Senator, because if you look at the viruses that were used in the experiments, that were given in the annual reports, that were published in the literature, it is molecularly impossible.
No one's saying those viruses caused it.
It
no
is
one is alleging that
molecularly.
those viruses caused the pandemic. What we're alleging is that gain-of-function research was going on in that lab, and NIH funded it.
That is
you can't
not.
Get away from it. It meets your definition, and you are obfuscating the truth.
I'm not.
And we'll leave it right there. Kudos to Senator Rand Paul. We may disagree on a lot, but on this thing, my man. See you tomorrow. Same Cajun time, same Cajun channel, and I am out. Galatians 2:20.